yeah, thank you very much to Ashley and Jeff for having me, and all of you for coming out this early to support the event and support just this whole idea. I think it's a really beautiful thing. So I don't typically do PowerPoints, and actually I've never done one. So I sort of labored over this, and I'm just going to let it flow. So I want to start with actually just talking about the definition of flow that I just looked up in the dictionary. The following is what I found: to proceed slowly, to circulate, to have a smooth continuity, to rise, to derive from a source. All of which I think are lovely. However, when I think about the word flow, these words really came up for me: rhythm, balance, ease, and presence. So especially I feel like these words are all actually interchangeable. When I talk about rhythm to my life, I'm talking about flow. If I'm talking about balance, I'm talking about flow. And when I have those in my life, especially in a real daily rhythmic way, I'm able to feel ease, and I'm able to really feel more present. So I want to actually back up a little bit and talk about my background, my story. I grew up actually in Fargo, went to Fargo South. I don't know, any Bruins in the room there? Oh, yeah. Wow. Okay, well, I'm not going to say how long ago I was at South, but I started kind of dabbling into music and got more and more passionate about music, sort of the end of my high school years, and started writing and performing, and really didn't feel like a pull towards going the college route like most of my friends did. I just had a lot of resistance around that, and so I really wanted to just try music and see what would happen, and I just knew that was more my path. So I moved to Minneapolis. I started playing a lot just around that area. I started writing more and more. I started recording, did a couple albums sort of right away in the beginning, and then it just sort of snowballed really from there. I was actually able to make a living off of it for many, many years. I ended up doing 6 different albums, and just really found that to be a very creative time of my life. The flow that happens when you write a song is, I think, it's pretty hard to describe, actually, but sometimes it flows very quickly, sometimes it's very slow. But the flow that happened was just always very inspiring to me, and kind of kept me going. And then the flow that actually happens when you perform is kind of a whole different ballgame, but one that I always really, really loved. So I was in Minneapolis for many years, and then ended up moving to Portland, Oregon, and continued to do my music and toured all over the country. But it was at that time that I started to dabble with yoga and become more interested in studying that. So I found my teacher in Portland. He runs, and still to this day, runs a ASHTANGA Mysore style studio. So ASHTANGA is just a particular style of yoga that ASHTANGA itself means 8 limbs. So there's sort of 8 parts to that practice. Just one part of that practice would be the asana. So I don't know how familiar you are with yoga. I mean, you do coffee yoga, so you're pretty much experts. But the asana is the actual movement, the poses, and the postures. So Ashtanga VINYASA yoga is a flow practice. I mean, it's sort of the definition of flow in my mind. So this is just a picture of like a sun salutation A. It's basically connecting, I mean, that's what vinyasa means, is connecting movement and breath together. So some of you have probably done some of this style, but any real like flow type class, I mean, there's lots of different names for yoga now. So vinyasa flow or yoga flow, or I don't know, there's like thousands of different types of yoga now. But any kind of flow practice really comes from the Ashtanga tradition. So I got more and more into that, established a daily practice, both my husband and I actually, and eventually my teacher gave me permission to start teaching, which is sort of how it works in the Ashtanga world. It's more of a lineage sort of process. So I started teaching when I was in Portland, and really enjoyed that, the way that I was able to connect with students. When I moved back to Fargo then, 12 or so years ago, I actually started to teach yoga in my house because I didn't know where else to do it. So I just cleared out my furniture and we did it in my living room. And I had just some students that started coming, and eventually that got a little bit bigger. So we decided to rent a space downtown. And that's when I really started to feel a shift happen, where instead of always feeling a sense of flow and rhythm through my music and through performing, I started to feel flow just much more through my body because of years of practice, of the physical practice. But I started to feel a lot of flow just through the act of teaching and sharing that with others. And then really just feeling connected with other people and building that in a community. So more recently, I was downtown on Broadway for many years, and then just in the last few months moved to this new building, which my husband and I worked really hard to design and renovate over the last year and a half or so. So we kind of brought a whole new life into a 60-year-old building, which has been really exciting. And that's just a picture of my new space, which is just really spacious and exactly what you need to allow for flow. So again, going back to my own personal definition of flow, rhythm and balance, which creates ease and presence. So I feel like flow really allows, or really actually happens for me when I have these 4 things in my life on a daily basis. So feeling connected, that's a big thing for me. Feeling connected within my family unit, like spending time with my daughter and my husband, like very concentrated quality time. Feeling connected to my family members outside of that and friends, making time for that. And the wider community. So I find a lot of connection through volunteer work. And the more I do of that, I feel the more flow happens for me. Finding it also through movement. So on a daily basis, getting on my mat and moving my body, whether it's like a flow practice, doesn't have to be always an Ashtanga type practice. It can be a really gentle flow, but somehow moving my body. And also just like getting outside and walking every day. That's a ritual for me. So moving my body in that way. For others, it's running. That's the movement that they find a lot of flow from. Incorporating stillness has been really important to me, especially in the last 8 years or so, especially since having my daughter. Like movement is important, but I feel like stillness has become more important. So sitting in meditation, doing more of like a restorative practice where we hold poses longer and we use lots of props, like basically like set yourself up in a recliner and then you just lay back. It's pretty sweet. So just like incorporating a lot of that into my life has been huge. And then incorporating joy, like cultivating joy in my life and sometimes really working to seek it out. So the best example, I mean, I find a lot of joy in my family life with my daughter, like spending time, like getting on the floor with her and just playing. And like, that's really joyful because you're just sharing that energy with someone who's so little and they're so creative. They're just like joyful beings. And so to be able to be around that is really amazing. But in my business, kind of more professional life, I've really worked hard to try and bring in other offerings at my studio. So I typically in the past have only done yoga meditation. Like that was sort of just what we did. And I was very traditional, sort of Ashtanga, like that's what you do is Ashtanga. And I've really swayed from that because I felt like I needed more joy in my life. And this is coming out of a lot of personal experiences of loss and hardship and just craving that really at this time in my life. So I found some really amazing teachers that have come in and we offer dance movement for adults and kids. And one of my teachers does hooping, which like, what? Like I did not think I would get so excited about hoop dancing, like literally hula hooping. But it's wonderful. It's so much fun. And she does laughter yoga too, which again, as an ASHTANGA practitioner, it was like, laughter yoga is just like, no. And again, I had never experienced it, but I was trying to be as open as I could be to like feeling more joy in my life. And doing laughter yoga is amazing, like just crying. I'm laughing so hard. So I highly recommend it if you haven't tried it. And then other offerings, like I do a song circle where I just basically ask people to come to my studio, and I use this instrument and I just sing, and they sing with me. So it's a very different experience than what I did in the past, where I would be on a stage singing to them. We're actually just sitting in a circle, all on the same level, and we're all singing together. So I'm sort of leading the group. You know, there's some structure to it, but it's really more about all of us together connecting in a totally new way. So all of those things have brought a lot more joy into my life, but I've had to really seek that out. So basically when I'm able to incorporate all these things into my daily life, that's where I feel like my life feels like it's flowing. So also through daily rituals, practices and routines, which I've kind of already covered some of that, but feeling like for flow to happen, first off, I just need awareness. Awareness of, for me, I have to be very aware of like energy output and input. So one of my meditation teachers' quotes there is, "We cannot give unless we're giving from an overflow." And I'm a firm believer in that because I have experienced burnout in the past. That really, if we're not resourced ourselves, we can't give and do the work that we want to do in the world without feeling really depleted. So we have to start from an overflow. And really to get that overflow, I feel, for me, I have to really keep on top and be conscious of all of these things listed. So my self-care routines, which is, I'm not going to get into all of those because there's a lot of them, but anywhere from like scraping my tongue first thing in the morning to having a hot cup of tea at night. Those are just little rituals that I do every day. Diet, sleep routines, how I spend my time, screen time is a big one. But the last two, I think, are ones I'm going to focus on a bit more. So awareness of breath is a great one for me personally to focus on, and then creativity. So flow through the breath. There's a quote here by BKS Iyengar, who is a fairly famous kind of yoga gurus in the world. Breath is the king of the mind. So the idea being that if we can control and be conscious of the breath, we can control our mind and our mind states. So I wanted to go a little bit through, some of this might be like totally new to you, and some of it may be like, I know all this, but nose breathing is huge. The benefits of breathing in general are great, but specifically nasal breathing, even during sleep. The most important, I think, is the ability for breathing to just calm the nervous system. So we move from that fight or flight mode that we're in a lot of the time. Just culturally, it's how we live. But moving us from that to the relaxed sort of rest and digest state. And breathing through the nose actually helps that happen. It also increases oxygen to the brain. It lowers our stress hormones. It boosts nitric oxide, which helps to combat the bad bacteria. It regulates our blood pressure, and it boosts our immune system. Just by breathing through your nose. Ah! So pranayama is sort of a yogic term for, it translates as breath control. So we use this a lot, like if you're doing a flow practice, like an ASHTANGA, you're doing pranayama the entire time. You're doing a specific breath called ujjayi breath. But you can also do, just a seated standalone pranayama practice where you're just sitting or lying back. So it doesn't always have to be connected to like an asana practice. So I actually want to talk you through a short exercise if you're game. Yeah? I know you have coffee in your system, so you might be like, this is not going to work. But I want you to just try. So I want you to actually start, just kind of get into a little comfortable seat. It's going to be short and painless. So maybe close your eyes. Maybe start with just a couple deep breaths. It might feel good actually to let it out through your mouth, especially if you're having a little bit more of a struggle this morning to center. And I want you to just, with the mouth closed, start to feel the breath moving, the air moving through your nostrils. And just kind of notice how it feels. See if you can kind of tune in to expanding a little bit more into your belly space. And then I want you to actually start to visualize the airflow moving in on your next inhale just through your right nostril. And then as you exhale, feel the breath move out through just your left nostril. And then inhale through your left nostril and visualize it moving out through your right. So inhale again through just the right side, just imagining or sensing that flow, and exhale through the left. And inhaling through the left. And exhaling through the right. I want you to try a couple more rounds just on your own. See if you can really sense that. Maybe it's more of a visualization, but maybe you're actually can really feel it moving through just one side. And then as you come into that last exhale, breathing in through the left side, and then let the exhale release through both nostrils evenly. Just kind of let the whole visualization go. And then take a couple more breaths just through both sides, not trying to close off either side. Just keep it open. And then just whenever you feel ready, you can start to open your eyes. So that's basically like an alternate nostril pranayama practice. So oftentimes you'll see it or do it with actually closing off the nostrils, but I just wanted you to experience visualizing it and seeing if you could feel it even without doing that. How did it feel? You're like more stressed out. No. Crap. Okay. So another thing for me to experience flow, and this has been really a lot more recently, is experiencing flow through words. So I've always sort of had that experience through songwriting of creating words and essentially poetry that has its own flow. But I've been reading a lot more poetry lately and incorporating it into my classes and into my song circle gatherings because it's just become something I'm really passionate about. So poetry, I feel, allows us to connect with the other. It's very rhythmic and spacious. It opens us up so that we can feel and experience life more fully. It helps us to feel less alone. So I actually want to share a poem with you. One of my favorite poets is Mary Oliver, and this is titled Next Time. Next time what I do is look at the earth before saying anything. I'd stop just before going into a house and be an emperor for a minute and listen better to the wind or to the air being still. When anyone talked to me, whether blame or praise or just passing time, I'd watch the face, how the mouth has to work, and see any strain, any sign of what lifted the voice. And for all, I'd know more. The earth bracing itself and soaring, the air finding every leaf and feather over forest and water, and for every person, the body glowing inside the clothes like a light. So the final thing that I want to share that I feel encourages flow in my life, and where I experience a lot of flow, is through song, through music. And I love this quote by Stephen Sondheim: "If I cannot fly, then let me sing." I wish I could have sung this whole presentation because it would be a lot more comfortable for me. But this is a picture of one of my song circles. So we, like I said, we come together and we sit in a circle and we sing. And I think it's a really magical thing that happens. There's a vibrational aspect to it. There's an energy flow, and just really like a heart connection. So I was hoping to share a chant with you to sort of give you an example of flow of music. And this is a peace invocation. So the translation of this, I think, is really beautiful. May we together be protected. May we together be nourished. May we work together with great energy. And may our study be filled with brilliance and light. Om, peace, peace, peace. Shanti, shanti, shanti. So I was hoping to play that particular invocation. And this is kind of another example for me of flow, is this particular instrument. It's similar to like an organ or an accordion where you have to pump it, so you get the air flowing through it, which then creates the sound. And then obviously the voice is its own flow instrument. So if you're familiar and comfortable with oming, you can om with me. Sana vavatu, sana vunaktu, saha viryam karvavahai, tejasvinavati tamastu, ma vidvashavahai, sana vavatu, sana vunaktu, saha viryam karvavahai, tejas vinavati tamastu, ma vidvashavahai. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. All right. Thank you. First time chanting in a brew hall. So I want to end with just this quote because I think it's really beautiful, and it's a picture of my daughter doing her spinning, just like a perfect image of joy to me. May what I do flow from me like a river, no forcing and no holding back, the way it is with children. Thank you for listening. That's it for me.